Welcome back to Healthy Bites. Bread is something that we've all become really fond of, and over the last 10-15 years there is a multitude of breads in the market, so much of variety. But I'm going to show you a recipe today where you can make bread at home. It's really simple, it doesn't take as much effort, takes a little bit of time. Most importantly, this bread is stuffed full of vegetables. So this is my recipe for stuffed bread. The ingredients are baby corn, carrot, coriander, beans, sugar, salt, fresh chili, dried red chili, olives, yeast, garlic, a little bit of oil, unrefined groundnut oil is the best, coriander powder, jeera powder, some Italian herbs, dried herbs, cheese, onions, jawar flour, atta. So to make a bread, it's really easy. You just need to use good quality yeast, soak it in a little bit of water and make sure that the water is lukewarm. That is very important. If it's anything more than that, the yeast will die, and if it's colder than say lukewarm, it's not going to give it that lift and rise. So I've got some water, I'm going to put in my yeast and wait for that to start bubbling up. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk to you about the flours I'm using. Yes, in the West they have bread flour and all-purpose flour and all those different kinds. But what we find here in India is good quality atta, and I refuse to use maida because it is highly refined and processed. So I substitute everything with atta, and I've learned how to use millets also. So I've got this bread recipe that uses half of jawar and half atta. And the reason I like to use jawar is it is the lightest of millet flours and therefore doesn't make the bread really heavy. So just go half and half. And whenever you want to experiment with millets, start with jawar flour. Even if you're making chapati, jawar rotis are the closest that you can get to just plain atta chapatis. So what I've got is chili flakes, a little bit of Italian seasoning, a little bit of oil, and the sugar you want to put a little bit into the yeast because sugar helps the yeast to start bubbling up and helps it to get activated. And of course a little bit of salt just to season it. And wait for the yeast to start bubbling in a few minutes. You'll find that it bubbles up. It all doesn't have to become liquidy and sink down. It can still maintain its form, but the important thing is to see bubbles rise up in the water. So give that a few minutes. So after about 2 minutes, you can see bubbles have risen up to the surface. That means the yeast is good and is starting its activation process. Now if you don't find any bubbles, don't even move on to the next step because your bread is not going to rise and it's going to be really sad at the end. So all you do is now push it in and make sure that all of the yeast comes through. And this is where we start the kneading process. So you've got to knead this whole thing gently, just bring it together, and then you need to knead it for a good 10 minutes. And the more you knead it, the softer your end result will be. Don't worry about adding any more flour or water at this point, just knead. It'll settle down by itself. The proportions are perfect. So nowadays we know this bread as calzone. We love these calzone stuffed pocket pizzas that we get everywhere. But it started off as basically a small little ball of dough that the Italians wanted to make healthier and make into a one-pot wonder. So they added all the vegetables to it and then baked it. And that's how this stuffed bread recipe came out, and this was well in the 14th, 15th century. So while I'm kneading, let me show you how to knead. So there are a couple of different ways of kneading bread. Whenever you see a recipe that says knead for 10 minutes, you don't have to do the same thing because your arms get tired. Let me show you some different ways. So make it into a nice long roll and then just bring it together and then roll. And then push out, bring it in, roll. Push out, bring it in, roll. Just keep doing that for a good 10 minutes. The other way is to stretch it out like this. Keep one hand down, pull it out, and then just roll it back in. Do the same on the other side, just pull it out and bring it back in. Now the idea of kneading this dough for about 10 minutes is so that it becomes nice and elastic and you're going to get a soft, springy bread. Now if you don't do this process, if you take a shortcut and you say, no, I don't have time to knead, you're not going to have a good result at the end. You're going to have a tough dough, and your piece of bread, if you hit it against the wall, it'll stick in the wall. So don't do that. Take the time to do this. This is a really good time to get any children involved or everyone in the house involved. Let everyone come and just do it for 1 or 2 minutes. Even if they just do this and then bring it in, absolutely all right. There's no particular way of kneading for this recipe. You just need to knead it for a good 10 minutes. So I've been kneading this for about 10 minutes and you'll know it's ready when you just sort of poke it down a little bit and it starts to come up. Keep doing that through the process and you'll find that it'll start coming up faster. So you just need to do that. Don't stick your whole finger in, it's not going to rise up. It hasn't gone through the whole rising activation process as yet. So all you need to do is just make it into a nice ball, put it back into the bowl, cover it with a cloth or towel or a little bit of cling wrap and keep it in a warm place for about 2 hours. It's going to double, and in the meantime we'll make our veggie filling. The next step is to cook the veggies. Now this is where you can get really creative, put in whatever you like, make it different every time so your dish tastes different each time. Now I'm going to show you how to make it without oil, because I believe that oil is detrimental to our health because it is so refined. If you really need the lubrication for your body, just eat whole pieces of coconut or eat nuts, and nuts have more than enough oil for our body. I used a little bit of oil while making the bread dough because that helps to make it nice and elastic. I've tried it without the oil also, but I find that with that 2 tablespoons of oil, it makes a huge difference. So for the veggies, we absolutely don't need the oil. So in a nice hot pan, I'm going to put in the onions. And I'm just going to toss these around until they get a little bit of color. And in the meantime, I'm going to add garlic and chilli to it. So for today's recipe, I'm using carrot, beans and baby corn as our main star ingredients. But of course, you can use as much or as little as you like. And sometimes what I do is I chop up these herbs and vegetables really fine and put them into my dough itself. So you get a different texture in the dough. So this has cooked out a little bit. I'm going to add the rest of the veggies. So that's baby corn, beans, carrot. And here I'm going to go a little Indian. I'm going to put some coriander powder and jeera powder. Add some salt. And add a dash of water, because this then helps the veggies not stick to each other and it will also cook them. And then let this cook for about 5 minutes and our vegetable stuffing is ready. So the vegetables have cooked out nicely. Time to put in the finishing touches. While it is still a little hot but not on the heat, I put in the cheese cubes, coriander, and when you're using coriander like this, you've definitely got to use the stems. The stems have a lot of nutrition and actually a lot of taste, a lot more taste than just the leaves do. Then add the olives. And you can always use jalapenos and black, green olives, whatever you like. Absolutely customize this dish. And that's it. Cool this down, and once the bread has risen, we'll move on to the next step. So the bread dough has been rising for about 2 hours, and when you just gently press it, it fluffs right back. It's ready for the next stage. So what I like to do at this point is you just need to knead it out a little. All of that wonderful air has to go out because it has to rise again. So just do that. Okay. And I'm going to shape it out into a log. And you can make these as big or as small as you like. What I like to do is roll them nice and small, so everyone gets a bite-sized piece of stuffed bread. Okay. Just roll it out. Be as creative as you want. Create whatever shapes, whatever you want. Absolutely go ahead and do it. Take a little bit of stuffing and then just put it in. So like I said, this is the place where you can put whatever veggies that you want. Go ahead, go crazy, add all the vegetables that you have in your cupboard. And what I like to do is just crimp it down. And to make it look beautiful, let me show you how to do this. Just fold. Just keep folding it all around. You're going to get a beautiful crust on the outside there. And with that gooey cheese and all of that inside, yum. Just keep folding. I love to get my cousins involved at this point because they all come in with crazy ideas. You know, we're going to make this shape and that shape. And why not? What's wrong with it? And keep making that until all your dough is done. So I've made my little stuffed breads. What I'm going to do is make a cut into each, and that will help release all the steam that is there. Otherwise, what will happen is it can get soggy because of the steam and you won't have a crunchy exterior. And that's it. Put it in the oven for about 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes. You'll know when the bottom is nice and hard and you can go tuck on it. So after about 15 minutes in the oven, the breads are done. They're nice golden brown, crusty and soft and gooey in the inside. A perfect treat for anyone in the family, and I love to make it. So go ahead, try it out and let me know what you think.